Hello and welcome back to JW's Dugout. John here. Happy Thursday, folks. We're back with actually another installment of the Hall of Fame Autograph Series by Class series. It's actually part 6 in our ongoing run where we look at each Hall of Fame class and I show off some autographs from my collection of each player. We took a little break from the series. It's been a couple weeks. Just wanted to kind of keep things fresh, but I'm ready to jump back into it. And today we're going to talk about two really fun classes, I think, the class of 2012 and the class of 2011. Back-to-back years filled with some pretty big names. Two of the most important position players, I think, of the 1990s, a beloved Cubs legend, a Dutch ace, and even a master builder of championship teams. But before we show off the cards and share a few stories, I do have a few housekeeping items. So number one, I am actually scheduled to be on Alex Bowman 53's Card Room Live session this Sunday evening at 8 p.m. We'll be sharing some fun stories, some cards, of course, with a handful of other collectors in the hobby. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And then number two, I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I had a great conversation with Matt over at Straight Race Cards. Fantastic channel. If you haven't had a chance to view any of his content, go over there, subscribe, puts out some great positive messages. But we had a great conversation, like I said, Tuesday night. He let me know that episode of More Than a Collector will likely air on his channel either Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. So definitely check that out. We kind of go into my collecting history, some of my background from both professional and personal perspective, and share some stories, share some cards. It was just a great time. So I'll try to obviously share the video on my channel, but definitely go over to Matt's channel, Straight Race Cards, subscribe to him and show him some support. All right, with that being said, let's get into the classes of 2012 and 2011. Let's flip the camera around and take a look at some cards. All right, guys, so before we dive into the class of 2012 and the class of 2011, I do want to make note that we didn't focus on the class of 2013, and here's the reason why. There's 3 members of the class of 2013. I do not have any of their autographs yet. Those 3 individuals are Hank O'Day, who's a former pitcher, umpire, and manager, really best known as the only man in baseball history to both pitch and umpire in the World Series. And remembered most for making the famous Merkel's boner call in 1908. Who could forget that? There was also Jacob Ruppert, who, for those of you who know your baseball history, was a wealthy New York brewer and congressman who turned baseball owner. He helped build the Yankees into a powerhouse. He was the one responsible for purchasing Babe Ruth and also constructing the original Yankee Stadium. And then there's also Deacon White. He was one of the earliest stars of professional baseball, was a catcher, a third baseman in the 19th century, and really known for his ability with the bat and also just his overall sportsmanship during, the formative years of baseball. So, some of these autographs I would say are obtainable. Jacob Ruppert, I want to say that I've seen some signed checks on eBay that, will go anywhere from like $400 to $600. Hank O'Day's stuff is really hard to come by. And I don't know if I've actually ever seen a Deacon White autograph available anywhere, to be honest with you. Probably looking in the wrong spot, but to be honest with you, I haven't really tried to track down. He's not high on my list of those Hall of Fame autographs that I'm missing, which again, by the way, I know I mentioned this in the previous video. I'm at 208 individual Hall of Famers right now of the 351 available. So that is the class of 2013. Let's move into those autographs that I do have, and that's the class of 2012. All right, so quick overview. The 2012 Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony was held on July 22nd of 2012 in, you guessed it, Cooperstown, New York. Drew an estimated 18,000 fans to the grounds of Clark Sports Center. And it was really, it was the Hall of Fame class of the shortstop, one of the most prominent shortstops in baseball in the 90s, Cincinnati favorite, and that is Barry Larkin. 12-time All-Star, 3 Gold Gloves, 9 Silver Sluggers, and of course the 1995 National League MVP. This is his 2020 Topps Sterling. You've got the jersey with the Reds pinstripe, the bat, and then, of course, the autograph right there. And this one's actually numbered 8 of 25. This is a beautiful card. I love, they've got a little write-up in the back. Really talking about Sterling's season. So in 1995, for the first time in 33 years, NL MVP bouquets were showered on a shortstop. Larkin's across-the-board contributions to the division-winning Reds ranged from his numbers, 319 average, 15 homers, 51 stolen bases, to his award-winning defense at shortstop, to his sage clubhouse leadership. Unfortunately for Mr. Larkin, his Reds were disposed of in the NLCS by my Atlanta Braves. But I always really enjoyed watching Barry Larkin as a kid. Here's a guy who spent his entire 19-year career with the Reds. Was really one of the first, I would classify him as modern shortstops, a guy who had a great glove. He could run, he could hit for power, at certain points, and just a true leader. He was elected with 86.4% of the overall vote in his third year on the ballot. And I would actually say, like, his autograph's pretty affordable, but it's also kind of a fan favorite. He's got a great autograph. Smooth, elegant, and you've got the classic looping B and looping L. It's one of those signatures, I think, that just kind of looks like a Hall of Famer signature. So we'll put Mr. Larkin front and center here. All right, next on the list here is a Chicago Cubs favorite, fan favorite, the heart and soul of the North Side, and that's Mr. Ron Santo. I took this one out of the case because the case that I had was rather crummy, but this is a 2005 Upper Deck Sweet Spot Classic autograph of Santo. His on-card autographs, they're not readily available because, he's unfortunately since passed. I try to veer away from the Sweet Spot Classic and the Sweet Spot autographs because they tend to fade. They had a long history, and that's the problem with the set. A lot of the autographs that were not signed in ballpoint pen in the blue ink here, they've tended to fade over time. A lot of, my PC of Fred McGriff, I stay away from the Sweet Spot stuff because it fades, and it gets to a point where you can't even, the autograph isn't visible anymore. But this one's great. This one was signed in pen. I love the design. I love the aspect of having, a baseball kind of ingrained into the card. And it's just a sweet looking card. You've got the back here, really kind of standard Upper Deck authenticity. But let's talk a little bit about Ron Santo. I would argue one of the greatest Cubs to ever wear the uniform. He was a 9-time All-Star, 5 Gold Gloves, 342 career home runs. Really just incredible numbers for a third baseman of his era. He wasn't elected by the writers. He finally got in posthumously through the Golden Era Committee, obviously in 2012. And it took, 30 years after his retirement, but he was always beloved in Chicago for both his play and his passion as a broadcaster. I would say his story is also kind of one of perseverance, both on the field and later in his life. He battled diabetes. So really, really happy to have his autograph in my collection. He was a great player, great member of the Hall of Fame. I'm going to stick this one right here. And believe it or not, guys, that was it. There was just 2 players in the class of 2012. So we're going to shift over to 2011 that had 2 players and then one executive. So I'm going to take Mr. Larkin and Santo and stick them right over here. And we'll move on to the class of 2011. So the 2011 Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony took place July 24th, 2011. An estimated 17,500 fans in attendance. And the guy who was kind of the face of this class, I'm going to take this out of the case real quick, or out of the sleeve, is somebody who was well loved, I would say, during his playing days. Minus the spitting incident. Post-career and post-Hall of Fame induction, not so much, and we'll get into that in a second, but Roberto Alomar. This is his 2020 Topps flagship auto. And, first off, let's just talk about him as a player. If you grew up in the 90s, to me, Roberto Alomar was the second baseman of that era. 10 Gold Gloves, 12 All-Star nods, over 2,700 hits, 2 World Series rings with Toronto in the early 90s. Silky smooth in the field, and then clutch at the plate too. But he was elected this year, 2011, with 90% of the vote. And he's got an interesting autograph. I would say it's pretty recognizable. There's like the big looping R, the unique A. This part here is a little disconnected, and I like how he includes his number as well. The thing is with him though, like, so let's move past him as a player. Like, we know he's fantastic as a player, but things really kind of started to unravel in the early 2020s. Alomar he was banned from baseball by MLB following an independent investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct that dated back to 2014. And then really that same year, I think it was like in April, the Blue Jays also announced that Alomar would be removed from the stadium as far as like signage, and his retired number banner would be taken down at Rogers Center. And since then, the Blue Jays have actually reactivated his uniform number 12. It's been used by, a number of guys. I think most recently Jordan Hicks in 2023. And he remains the only player in history to be a member of both the Baseball Hall of Fame and MLB's permanently ineligible list simultaneously. So just an interesting guy. He's one of those guys to me that it's like, do you separate the player from the personality? And it's tough. I mean, we're going to see with Pete Rose and everything that's going on with that whole debate. At what point do you take stock of a player's ability on the field and recognize that in Cooperstown, as opposed to the complete package? Would we love all of our athletes and all of our heroes to be great people? Absolutely. But that's just not the case. There's a lot of bad guys who are in Cooperstown, and there's a lot of bad guys who are currently playing baseball who potentially are on track to become Hall of Famers. We just never know until, the story comes out, until a reporter reports on something. So, I mean, it's an interesting case. I'm curious to know how you guys feel about it. Feel free to leave a comment about Roberto Alomar. What do you think about him and his representation in the Hall? The other guy that we want to cover here, who was also part of this class, is Bert Blyleven, one of the most underrated pitchers of all time, I think. Listen to this. Hang on one second, guys. He's got over 3,700 strikeouts and the kind of longevity you don't see anymore. He pitched for 22 seasons. This is his 2011 Topps Tier 1 Crowd Pleasers out of 50. To me, it's a great looking card. He finally got his Hall call in 2011 after years of near misses on the ballot, finishing with 79.7% of the vote. And just so well-deserved. He had 2 World Series rings, career ERA of 3.50. And I guess you could call him the Flying Dutchman 2.0 after Hannes Wagner. Here's a guy who was born in the Netherlands. His parents really didn't have much to do with baseball at all, from what I gather. I was listening to a podcast, the Road to Cooperstown podcast with John Morosi, and he interviewed Blyleven, who was a great interviewee. And just a fascinating story. It was really interesting to hear his progression into the majors and how he was able to stick around for so long. But I've always loved his signature too. It's very deliberate. It's clean. I mean, it's clean from the standpoint of you can actually make out that this is Bert Blyleven's signature. And it kind of carries the old school vibe. They took time. Each letter is spelled out here. So just love it. So we'll put Mr. Blyleven right there. And then, we're down to our last Hall of Famer of this video. And this is a card I showed off very early on in my channel. And I was actually talking about that same podcast, the Road to Cooperstown, where John Morosi interviewed this gentleman, and that's Pat Gillick. And this is his 2012 Panini Cooperstown Signatures autograph. I don't have a ton of Panini stuff, but I love Panini Cooperstown. They made this for a couple years. This is a very nice way of getting on-card Hall of Fame autographs, not only from executives and some players. I don't really have any players from this set. I tend to stick to more of the licensed cards, but the executives here are on card. They also have umpires part of the set, and my personal favorite, they have broadcasters and writers. Not everybody, but some of the hard to find ones are available on here. So with Gillick, let's talk about him. He obviously didn't win games on the field. He built the rosters that did, though. I think he's kind of considered one of the most respected general managers in baseball history. So he constructed 3 different World Series winners. Toronto in 92 and 93, and then Philadelphia in 08. He was elected by the expansion era committee, and really as a nod to shaping some of the dynasties behind the scenes. I wouldn't say that Gillick's autograph is incredibly tough to find. Maybe on an on-card auto. I got this one very early on. I got this years ago, but it's not a very expensive auto. And from my understanding as well, he's pretty good TTM. From some of the videos of those who do TTM have stated. So really clean autograph, very legible, and really happy to have this. This is a guy who is a team builder and really a visionary, I think. He made some very interesting trades. He was very much involved in my all-time favorite player being traded, essentially Hall of Famer for Hall of Famer. When the Braves had Fred McGriff, they traded quite infamously to San Diego, and in return, the Blue Jays got Roberto Alomar. There's the connection there, and Joe Carter as well. So just a classic deal, one that really kind of changed the trajectory of things. I remember in the interview with John Morosi, Pat Gillick talked about, and this struck a chord with me, obviously with Fred McGriff being my favorite player. He talked about how his wife, who's obviously a huge baseball fan, being married to Pat Gillick, Fred McGriff was always her all-time favorite player, even early on in his career. And she was pissed, absolutely pissed, when Gillick traded McGriff to the Padres. It worked out good because, the Padres then traded McGriff to the Braves. The Braves won the World Series in 95. So, this guy's a happy man, but Pat Gillick's wife, not so much. All right, guys. So there you have it. That's the classes of 2012 and 2011. Short and sweet, but really packed with impact players. You've got Larkin and his leadership, Ron Santo, a Cubby favorite, Roberto Alomar and all the baggage that he brings, Bert Blyleven, and then, of course, Pat Gillick and his brilliance kind of behind the curtain. So next time, we'll keep the run going with the class of 2010 and the class of 2010 and 2009, if I can talk. Sorry, guys. Which is another fun one. Some unique stories and underrated players there. I'll probably have that at some point next week, if not the week after. But, as always, thank you guys so much for watching and stopping by the Dugout. Feel free to give the video a like, drop a comment, let me know what you think of these Hall of Famers and these cards. Just a reminder, tomorrow morning, I've got it scheduled for episode number 10 of the More Than It Seems podcast will be distributed. So make sure to tune in for that. And then, like I said, I'll be on Card Room Live, at least I'm scheduled to at the moment. Bowman 53, Alex's channel on Sunday evening at 8. And then the conversation I had with Matt at Straight Race Cards for his More Than a Collector series will be released at some point next week, likely Tuesday or Wednesday. So be sure to check those out as well. Appreciate all the support as always, guys, and we will catch you next time.